Hello again, everybody. I'm Reggie Jackson, and welcome to Greatest Sports Legends. In today's show, we're going to take a look at a man who overcame incredible odds to accomplish an incredible feat. In 1961, this New York Yankee outfielder captivated the sports world by hitting 61 home runs, more than any other player has ever hit in one season. His name, Roger Maris.
Here's the windup. Fastball hit deep to right. This could be it. Way back there. Holy cow!
Hi, I'm Hall of Famer Yogi Berra, and you're watching Classic Sports Network. Now that's classic.
What's your favorite sports memory? Is it Reggie's 3 homers in Game 6? Or Michael's 6 3-pointers in Game 1? Or maybe it was the time you and your dad had the best seats in the house. We want to hear your favorite sports memory and maybe put it on the air. Classic Sports Network invites you to send us your favorite memory, whether it was a moment seen round the world or one that only you know about. Write it down on a postcard, mail it in, and if we tell your story, you get star billing and a Classic Sports logo t-shirt. Send your favorite memory to Favorite Sports Memories, Classic Sports Network, Murray Hill Station, P.O. Box 1830, New York, New York, 10156. Because if it meant something to you, it means something to us.
You're watching Classic Sports Network. Once-in-a-lifetime moments, 24 hours a day.
For one season, Roger Maris was the greatest home run hitter in baseball history. In 1961, Roger belted 61 home runs for the New York Yankees, breaking the single-season record of 60 set by the legendary Babe Ruth. As Maris approached the record, fans throughout the nation followed the drama on television, anxious to see if Roger could possibly keep pace.
There goes Tony, and there's a high drive to the right. Martin going back, and the ball is going, number 53.
Roger Maris would go on to play 12 years in the major leagues, compete in 7 World Series, and establish himself as a fine all-around player. But for anyone who followed baseball during the early 60s, Roger Maris is simply remembered as the man who broke Babe Ruth's single-season record. Veteran New York sports writer Maury Allen followed Roger's career and wrote a book on Maris called Roger Maris, A Man for All Seasons.
I think what Roger meant to baseball was giving the game a standard of excellence that everybody has to shoot at. That's not to take away from what Babe Ruth did, and we're not comparing personalities, but Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's record, and Babe Ruth was the most heroic sports figure in American history. So the next man to come along to break Roger's record will not have to deal with a legend. He'll simply have to deal with 61 home runs. But I believe that the record will last many, many years. It would not surprise me if it lasted, as long as baseball is played. Because when you see anybody get into the 40s or into the 50s, as we have in recent years with Fielder, the emotion just overwhelms them. And they cannot get the job done. Roger got the job done.
During Roger Maris's record-breaking season, he was constantly embroiled in controversy. For one thing, he was battling Mickey Mantle for the home run record, and most Yankee fans felt that if anybody should break Ruth's record, it should be Mickey Mantle, the man who most symbolized the great Yankee tradition. And then there was the media's depiction of Maris as a surly, unsociable man who was uncooperative with the press. This stigma would stay with Roger until the day he retired.
Roger's personality was kind of interesting. People forget he was only 26 years old when he did this. I think Babe Ruth was 31 years old. Roger had never been a star until he came to New York. He had the 1 year in 1960 when he was a star and won the MVP. So he wasn't prepared for this. The one thing they never do in professional sports is prepare a player for sudden fame or attention. And Roger's personality was just not a comfortable personality with this kind of attention. He was not outgoing. He was not very articulate. He was not a guy that hung around with the press or hung around with TV people. He simply wanted to play the game and go home. And as a result of it, people were angry at him for not helping them do their job. And so as time went on, this negative image just grew and grew and grew until people who didn't know him, had never even talked to him, may have never seen him even play except on television, began writing some of the most horrible things that had ever been written about an athlete in this country. He was really detested by 1962, 1963 by the general public for no fault of his own, other than the fact that he had broken the most noble record in the history of baseball.
To better understand who Roger Maris really was, one would have to go back to Fargo, North Dakota, where he grew up. In high school, Roger excelled in all sports, especially in football, where he was a star running back. Roger would turn down over 80 football scholarships in favor of signing a baseball contract with the Cleveland Indians for $15,000. Roger spent 4 years in the Cleveland farm system before joining the majors in 1957. Everyone knew Roger had great potential. He was an excellent outfielder with a strong arm. He could run well, and he had surprising power at the plate. But 1 year later, before Roger could fully develop his skills, he was traded to the Kansas City Athletics. Then, after one full season in Kansas City, he was traded again, this time to the New York Yankees.
Roger was rather disappointed when he was traded from Kansas City to New York. He did not like the big city. He was a small-town boy from Fargo, North Dakota. He didn't like the pressure, and I think he also was very concerned, and rightfully so as it turned out, with the competition with Mickey Mantle, who of course was at the peak of his career at that time, had a sort of love affair with the fans in New York and with the press, and I think Roger saw this as a very, very difficult adjustment.
Roger Maris had come a long way since his days in Fargo, North Dakota. Now, under the harsh spotlight of New York City, Roger was about to become the central figure on the great New York Yankee Ball Club.
And there it goes! Willie Mays has done it!
Classic Sports Network, where the legends play.
It's a game with unmatched history.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Filled with great players and great moments. Now, Sports Illustrated brings you baseball the way it was meant to be with SI's exclusive Classic Baseball Collection. You'll get the extraordinary 2-video boxed set, The History of Baseball, plus your choice of a classic baseball cap from one of the game's historic teams. And best of all, SI's Classic Baseball Collection is free with your paid subscription to Sports Illustrated.
Hello, babe. How do you feel?
With the history of baseball, you'll get a chance to relive an era when baseball was larger larger than life.
My best. I hope all you boys will be out there watching it.
And with your classic baseball cap, you can choose from any one of 4 historic teams. The Brooklyn Dodgers of 1955.
Boy, listen to that foul here.
The 1951 New York Giants. The 1975 Boston Red Sox.
There it goes, a ball drive. If it stays fair, home run.
Or the legendary New York Yankees.
And Joe DiMaggio. Josie Joe is up there. Right-hand hitter.
Call now. Use your credit card. Get 54 issues of Sports Illustrated, including the spectacular baseball preview and our famous swimsuit issue for only $1.48 an issue. You save 55% off the cover price. Plus, you'll get SI's classic baseball collection free. So pick your team, the Brooklyn Dodgers, the New York Giants, the Boston Red Sox, or the New York Yankees. There's nothing like SI's classic baseball collection, and there's nothing in the world like Sports Illustrated. Get into it.
If swing is your thing, then step into the ring every Friday night as Classic Sports headlines the greatest bouts of all time. From cool cats and hard-hitting hipsters to the hottest licks and rivalries the sweet science has ever known. It's boxing's most happening championship bouts. Plus, get the inside beat with the word on the street from hard-nosed scribes who don't pull any punches. It's Rocky Marciano night on Friday Night at the Fights with guest Jimmy Breslin. Friday at 9, only on Classic Sports.
In 1960, Roger Maris's first year with the Yankees, he was joining a team loaded with all-star players like Whitey Ford, Elston Howard, Yogi Berra, and Mickey Mantle. Yet it was Roger Maris who shined the most brightly in 1960. That year, Roger batted .283 with 39 home runs and 112 RBIs. Maris was named the American League's most valuable player and helped the Yankees win the pennant. Roger also won the Gold Glove Award, a testament to his all-around excellence as a ball player. Obviously, the pressure of playing in New York City had little effect on Maris. But the next season, 1961, Roger would experience perhaps the greatest pressure any ball player ever encountered. That year, Roger went on a home run tear that threatened to break Babe Ruth's single-season record of 60 home runs.
The 1961 season for Roger Maris was clearly the most difficult season any baseball player in the history of the game has ever faced and ever will face. And the reason for that is Roger, by mid-season, was chasing both the Babe Ruth record, the heroic image of Babe Ruth, and Mickey Mantle. The whole idea of Roger stealing this thunder from Mantle at the peak of his career and trying to catch Babe Ruth, the legendary baseball figure, a loved figure, was something that no baseball player ever had to deal with. No baseball player again will ever have to deal with, because if somebody hits 75 or 80 home runs next year, they'll be doing it against Roger Maris's record and not against Babe Ruth's record. And as the season went on, that pressure just became more and more enormous, more difficult, more daily tension, more media, more people who had never been to the ballpark or knew anything about baseball suddenly began caring about this incredible home run race, this incredible pressure, and it slipped over from being a baseball story to being a major news story in the 1961 year in this country. Roger handled the 1961 season, I think, rather well until about August. But when it became more possible that he would break this 60 home run record, you could see this emotion, you can see this wear and tear on Roger's face every day. He lost his hair, he was curt, he was tougher to deal with from the standpoint of the press. He tried to hide from people, he was not as accessible as he had been earlier, and people began to pry into his private life, which he hated desperately. So you could see that the emotion, the nerves, the tension, the unbearable pressures were just beginning to weigh him down.
Here's a drive. That That might carry all the way. Bruton back. And it's number 58 for Roger Maris. His 58th home run of the year.
While Roger closed in on the record, his teammate Mickey Mantle had dropped out of the home run race by mid-September due to a hip injury. With all the attention on number 9, Roger also had to deal with Baseball Commissioner Ford Frick's new ruling. Frick ruled that Maris had to hit 61 home runs in 154 games, the same number of games that Ruth had, in order to be credited with breaking Babe's record. In the 154th game, Roger needed 3 home runs to set the record.
There's one. It is going. It is going. It is gone. Number 59.
Roger managed to hit his 59th home run that game, but he would fall too short of breaking Ruth's record. With 8 games left in the new, expanded season, Roger wasn't finished just yet. On September 26th, he faced Baltimore's Jack Fisher.
There it is. There it is. If it stays fair, there it is. Number 60.
Roger became only the 2nd player in baseball history to hit 60 home runs in one season. Then, on October 1st, in the 4th inning of the last game of the season, Roger reached his goal against all odds.
Here's the windup. Fastball hit deep to right. Way back there.
Roger's reaction to breaking the record was, thank God this thing is over. I think regardless of whether he had broken the record or not, he was just so glad to see the season end and this pressure to cease that he was probably the most relieved person in the world when he finally hit that home run.
Strike up the band, college football fans. Classic Sports is giving you a reason for celebration with the greatest games and players in the history of higher education. All the traditions, all the legends, and all the passion. Every Friday night, it's Smash Mouth in your face football. So hit the books and look up the words Dynasty, Intensity, and Hail Mary. Phi Beta football, it's a rush. Catch Notre Dame and Tennessee in a 1990 clash, Friday at 7.
What are people saying about Classic Sports Network? 3 words. It's about time.
4, 3, 2, Michael fires. Yeah!
It's about the time Hank broke the Babe's record.
It's gone! It's 7:15!
Or the time Mary Lou was perfect. Classic Sports Network, the only network that brings you the greatest sports stories and personalities of all time, all the time. You're watching Classic Sports Network.
Roger Maris played 7 years for the New York Yankees, from 1960 to 1966. In that period, New York won 5 American League pennants and 2 World Series titles. With Roger in the lineup, the Yankees became one of the greatest power-hitting teams in history. In 1961, they set the all-time single-season record with 240 home runs. Of course, that was the year Roger amazed the baseball world with 61 home runs and earned his 2nd most valuable player award. Ironically, Roger's tremendous season in '61 would cause the downfall of his career with the New York Yankees.
After the '61 season, I think there were 2 tremendous changes in his personality. One, he could never be alone again, and he could never be a retiring kind of ball player and go back to South Dakota and hunt and fish in the off-season and just show up the next spring training. He was now a persona. He was now a public person, and everybody wanted a piece of him. Everybody wanted him at every banquet. Everybody wanted him at every dinner. I think that was one aspect. The other aspect, he immediately recognized that he could never again equal what he had done in 1961. It was, in a way, a freak year, a kind of amazing performance for whatever mental and psychological reasons came into play. So therefore, he would always be a disappointment to fans forever after. If he hit 40 or 50 home runs, people would say, well, he didn't have as good a season as he did in 61. He understood that immediately. The press began asking him right away, you know, could he break his own record? Could he even do better? And I think that really weighed very heavily on Roger. He was clearly a very, very unhappy young man in Yankee Stadium from that time on.
In 1967, after 3 disappointing seasons with the Yankees, Roger was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. For Roger, it was a welcome change.
When Roger went to the Cardinals in '67, I think it was probably the most pleasant baseball experience he ever had. It was a team that welcomed him. He had a great deal of, the players had a great deal of respect for him. And I think Roger's reputation as a player grew in those seasons. People recognized he was a winner, and people also recognized for the first time what a wonderful all-around player he was. He was a great fielder, had a great arm, really understood the game, was a marvelous base runner, and of course still had some of his power left. And I think the fans in St. Louis loved him, and of course they were winners when he was there.
In Roger's first season in St. Louis, he powered the Cardinals into the World Series, where they faced the Boston Red Sox. Roger would have an outstanding series, batting .385 with 10 hits and 7 RBIs. The Cardinals defeated Boston in 7 games, and Roger became a World Series champion for the 3rd time in his career. The next year, 1968, the Cardinals again reached the World Series, but this time they lost to the Detroit Tigers. Roger would retire after that season and live in Gainesville, Florida, where he would run a successful beer distributorship. As years passed, the significance of Roger's record-breaking accomplishment with the Yankees in 1961 grew in stature. But one question remained. Were there still any hard feelings between the Yankee fans and Roger Maris? The answer would come on April 12, 1978, when the Yankees invited Roger to raise their championship flag to celebrate their first World Series title in 15 years.
When Roger came back in 1978 for the first time after leaving the Yankees in '66, it was a very, very emotional day. It was almost as emotional as, you know, Mantl's retirement, DiMaggio's retirement. He was very concerned that the fans would boo him. It would be an unpleasant situation. Enough years had now passed since 1961 when he hit the home runs for people to recognize the greatness of that achievement, and people were truly warm and truly emotional, and Roger really was touched. There were tears in his eyes. He was not a very emotional guy, but that was clearly one of the most emotional days of his life, and I think it was a very, very happy experience for him.
Classic Sports Network is brought to you in part by fees paid by your local cable company.
Would you like a better paying job? Professional Career Development Institute can train you at home in just a few months for one of America's 15 top career opportunities. Whether your dream is to be your own boss or to work for an employer, call for free literature on any one of America's top career choices. Train at home for the job you've always wanted and earn this nationally recognized diploma. Take a look at PCDI's exciting career opportunities. Medical transcription, paralegal, veterinary assistant, computer training, fitness and nutrition, interior decorating, electrician, child daycare, conservation outdoors, travel agent, locksmithing, medical dental office assistant, home inspection, bookkeeping, accounting, or get your high school diploma. Call for free literature on the career of your choice.
In the U.S. and Canada, call 1-800-603-7616. Get free literature on one of these 15 careers. That's 1-800-603-7616. Earn more money. Call now. 1-800-603-7616.
It's Broadway Joe at the top of his game.
You make a pass and it's all over. The baby pass now and it's
The Joe Namath Show, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. Tune in and turn on, only on Classic Sports.
When you think of Roger Maris, you first think of his home run record, 61 home runs in one season. You also think of his rivalry that year with his friend and teammate, Mickey Mantle. And then there was the press, the way they portrayed Roger as a surly, unfriendly man. Roger played 12 years in the major leagues, played on 7 pennant winners. He was an honest, dedicated athlete who was respected by his teammates. Many baseball fans never understood who Roger Maris really was, either as a man or as a ball player. On December 14th, 1985, one of baseball's greatest players passed away. Roger Maris was only 51 years old when he died, a victim of cancer. He was buried in the town he grew up in, Fargo, North Dakota. 18 months earlier, the Yankees had retired his number 9 uniform. Roger would now be immortalized along with the other Yankee greats in the famous Memorial Park in Yankee Stadium.
I think if Roger had his choice as in the way that he would be remembered, I would think that he would not emphasize the home run record. He would emphasize the way he played the game, that he was a complete player, that he played with intensity, that he was a winner. He played on those Yankee championship teams. He went to St. Louis. He played on 2 championship teams. It may be naive to say, but I think Roger really drew more satisfaction from playing on winners and playing in the World Series than he did in the 61 home runs. The 61 home runs was a personal achievement. The World Series was a team achievement, and Roger, to the end of his life, was really a person who cared about his team and cared about winning. He was really a dedicated ball player, and I think if people recognized how successful the teams were that he was on, I think that would make him feel pretty good.